shall be looking at the layers of the retina. So what you need to know is that the retina has a total of 9 layers. 9 layers, as we are going to see. So take note that the retina has a total of 9 layers. And how are they arranged? So when we were looking at the structure of the eye, we had our eyeball in that form, and we saw that we had an outermost sclera, we had a cornea, we had other layers. So we saw that the sclera is continuous and it's just the outer covering of the eye. Then we saw that we had an inner layer, which was the choroid, the nutritive layer, and then we had the retina just beneath the choroid, like that. So the arrangement here, most books, the way they arrange the layers from posterior towards the anterior portions. So what we have here, this side would be the side, the posterior side from this side. Then this side will be the anterior portion. So the first part of the retina, or the first layer, is this part here, which is the pigmented layer. Pigmented layer. So you can easily see that since it's near the choroid, which has the nutritive layer, so this one is just contains a bit of pigments. That's why it's called the pigmented layer, the one that's next to the choroid. Then the second layer is the layer which contains the photoreceptors. So what we need to take note is the photoreceptors have about 4 parts. If I'm to draw here my photoreceptors, they have about 4 parts. So if I have my photoreceptor here, it's shaped in some manner of this sort. My art is not so good. So the photoreceptors have 4 parts. We have an outer segment, which is where I'm pointing. We have an inner segment, that one. We have a cell body, which contains the photoreceptor nuclei. And then we have the synaptic part, this one which will synapse I mean, with the next layer, you get. So the outer segment typically contains of just photoreceptors. Then we have an inner segment which contains the organelles, especially the mitochondria. You'll find them here. So this is for organelles. Can write here that this inner layer has organelles. Then the outer contains the pigments. That is, if we are talking about rods, we will talk about rhodopsin. If we are talking about the cones, we talk about the scotopsins. The opsins, responsible for color vision. Then the cell body contains just the nuclei, and then the synaptic part. So those are the parts of the photoreceptors cells. So when you look at this, the way it's divided is that we have an outer segment here, we have an inner segment, and I just drew it without separating them, but where you see this black spot, that is the cell body, our cell body. So from the outer and inner parts, that will be considered a single layer, and it's known as the photoreceptor layer. The photoreceptor layer. The photoreceptor layer. Then this line here, which separates the inner segment from the cell bodies where we have the nuclei, this line is known as the external limiting layer. So this will be known as the external limiting layer. External limiting layer, or you can call it the external limiting membrane. So that's our layer 2. Then we have this layer which contains the nuclei of the photoreceptors, and this layer will be known as the outer nuclei or nuclear layer. But remember, the nuclei are for the photoreceptors, so that's outer nuclear layer. Outer nuclear layer. So we have 3 already. That's the first one. Then we have the external limiting membrane. We have our outer nuclear layer. So the fourth layer will be this layer here, where we have the synapses between the photoreceptors and the next layer of cells, which we are seeing here, the bipolar cells, and this layer here is known as the outer. So you can easily tell that whatever is near the choroid will be considered the outer, and whatever moves towards the vitreous humor will be called the inner. So this side will be the inner. Then as you move that side of the pigmented layer, that is known as the outer portion. So this is the outer plexiform. Outer plexiform. Outer plexiform layer. So that's our fourth layer. Then the next layer, before we proceed, you can see that in here, in the outer plexiform, we have synapses between the photoreceptors and the bipolar cells. These are bipolar cells, as you can see. Then we have another cell, which is a horizontal cell. So it's not all about the photoreceptors and the bipolar, but we also have the horizontal cells contributing to the synapse in the outer plexiform. Then the next layer is this layer of the cell bodies of the of the bipolar. So you can see that in the cell bodies we have nuclei, and this will be known as the inner nuclear layer. Inner nuclear layer. Inner nuclear layer. That's our fifth layer. So the outer was for the photoreceptors, but the inner is for the bipolar. So layer 6 is this layer where we have the synapses between the bipolar and the next layer of cells, which are the ganglion cells. So this layer here is known as, you can guess, the other one was the outer, so this will be the inner plexiform. The inner plexiform layer. So you can write inner plexiform layer. That's layer 6. And you can see another cell, and this is known as the amacrine cell. Amacrine cell. So what we have in the inner plexiform is the amacrine cell. What we had in the outer plexiform is the horizontal cell. horizontal cell. And we shall later on see that these are important in lateral inhibition, which contributes to the enhancement of the contrast. Then the next layer of cells is this layer, which contains the ganglion cells. So it's known as the ganglion layer. Ganglion layer. So that's layer 7. Layer 7. So layer 8, we can see that the axons of these ganglion cells are elongated to form optic nerve fibers. So this layer that contains the fibers can be called the optic nerve fiber layer. Optic nerve fiber layer. That's our layer 8. That's our layer 8. Then the last layer is this layer here. So we say that the retina is just next to the vitreous humor. So there is just that layer which separates the retina from the vitreous humor, and it's known as the inner limiting membrane. And where did we have the outer? Because whenever we have inner, we must have the inner. So inner is this side, but outer, we said it's between the inner segment and the cell bodies of the photoreceptors. Get? So those are the 9 layers of the retina.